The sun had not yet fully risen when Sam McAllister stepped out of the small wooden cabin on the edge of the wide Arizona plain. The air was cool, almost crisp, and the sky above was a soft shade of pale orange. Sam always liked this time of day. It was quiet, calm, and full of promise. Birds were just starting to sing, and the wind moved gently through the tall grass. Sam placed his hat firmly on his head, checked the leather straps on his saddle, and patted his horse's neck. The horse snorted softly, ready for the long day ahead. Sam was a cowboy through and through. He had grown up on the open range, learning how to ride before he could even read. Hunting, roping cattle, fixing fences, these were normal parts of his life. He wasn't the kind of man who talked much. People said he had a quiet strength about him, like the mountains that surrounded their small ranch. That morning he wasn't going out for adventure. He was simply doing his job. The ranch had been short on fresh meat for weeks, and everyone was depending on him to bring something back. He slung his old Winchester rifle across his shoulder. It wasn't just a tool for hunting. It was like an old friend that had traveled many miles with him. Then he climbed onto his horse, gave a gentle kick, and rode off toward the wide open land where the mesquite trees grew low and twisted, and the air carried the warm smell of the earth. As Sam rode farther from the ranch, he watched the land come to life. A group of quail fluttered out of a bush. A rabbit dashed across the path. The early light made everything look golden. The sound of the horse's hooves was steady and familiar. Sam kept his eyes sharp, scanning for tracks in the dust. Hunting wasn't about rushing. It was about patience, moving slowly and reading the land like a story. After a few miles, Sam found a set of fresh deer tracks near a dry creek bed. He dismounted quietly, tied his horse to a small tree, and crouched down to look more closely. The prints were clear, and the soft dirt told him they weren't more than an hour old. That gave him hope. He started to follow them carefully, keeping his steps light and quiet. The wind was in his favor, blowing away from the direction of the tracks. The path led him through a narrow canyon where the walls rose on both sides like tall stone giants. The air here was cooler, and the sound of the outside world faded away. Sam's senses sharpened. He was used to being alone in places like this, where a man had to trust his instincts. A few birds circled overhead, and somewhere in the distance he heard the soft trickle of running water. He knew the deer would probably be near the water source. But as he moved closer, something unexpected happened. There were no signs of deer, no hoof prints, no movement in the brush. Instead, he noticed a different kind of track. It wasn't from an animal. These were human footprints, light and delicate, leading toward the creek. Sam felt his heart beat a little faster. Out here, miles away from any town or ranch, it wasn't common to find people wandering alone. He moved forward slowly, carefully stepping where the ground was soft, not wanting to make a sound. As he reached the bend of the creek, he stopped. Just a few steps ahead, kneeling beside the water, was a young woman. She was gathering water with her hands, letting it spill through her fingers. Her long black hair was neatly braided, and she wore a beautifully made dress of soft buckskin, decorated with small turquoise beads that caught the sunlight. Around her neck hung a simple but striking necklace made of bone and stone. She looked calm, almost like a part of the land itself. For a moment, Sam didn't move. He didn't even breathe too loudly. It was not every day that a cowboy found someone like her in the middle of nowhere. She turned her head slightly and their eyes met. Her expression didn't show fear. It showed alertness, strength, and quiet pride. She was not lost. She knew where she was. Sam immediately understood who she might be. The local Apache tribe lived not too far from this region. People in town often spoke about their chief, a man who was respected for his wisdom and leadership. This young woman, with her confident posture and graceful movements, could only be someone important, perhaps even the chief's daughter. Sam slowly lowered his rifle so it would not look threatening. He raised his hand slightly to show he meant no harm. The woman tilted her head, studying him carefully. She didn't run or shout. Instead, she stood up slowly, her feet silent on the soft earth, and faced him directly. Time seemed to slow down. The world around them grew quiet except for the sound of water flowing and the wind moving through the canyon. Sam could feel his heartbeat in his chest. He had hunted in these lands for years, but this was different. This was not a deer, not a boar. This was a person, and not just anyone, a woman from a proud and powerful tribe. He remembered the stories the older cowboys had told at night by the campfire. They often spoke about the Apache people with both respect and caution, There had been disagreements between settlers and tribes before, mostly over land. Sam had never been involved in any of it. He had always believed that the land was big enough for everyone. But he knew that one wrong move right now could lead to trouble. The young woman spoke a few words in her language, soft and smooth like the flowing creek. Sam didn't understand most of it, but he caught one word he knew. Who? He gently touched his chest and said, Sam. Then pointing toward the ranch far behind him, he added, ranch. Home. She nodded slowly, still watching him closely. Sam took a slow step forward, then another. She didn't step back. Instead, she bent down, scooped a little water in her hand, and held it out to him. It was a small gesture, but in that quiet canyon it meant everything. It wasn't just water. It was a sign that she wasn't afraid. She was showing trust, or at least a willingness to see what kind of man he was. He accepted the water, drank it slowly, then gave a small nod of thanks. A slight smile appeared on her face, brief but real. It surprised him. She had the kind of smile that carried both kindness and strength. The sun climbed higher in the sky, warming the canyon walls and filling the air with light. The moment felt almost unreal. Sam had come out to hunt for meat, not to find another person, let alone someone who would change the course of his day, or perhaps even his life. Still, a part of him knew this wasn't a simple encounter. The woman was far from her camp, and her presence here meant something important. Maybe she had wandered too far while gathering water. Maybe she was exploring, or maybe something else had brought her here. Sam gently gestured toward his horse and then toward the open land beyond the canyon, trying to ask if she wanted to go back or needed help. She understood. Her eyes softened and she gave a small nod. But before moving, she looked back in the direction she had come from, as if weighing a decision inside her heart. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of meaning, an invisible bridge being built between two different worlds. Neither of them fully understood the other's language, but somehow they understood each other's intentions. Sam knew one thing for sure. His life that morning had taken a turn he had never expected. He had started the day as a cowboy with a clear purpose, to bring back meat for the ranch. But now, standing beside the creek with the Apache chief's daughter looking at him with calm, steady eyes, he realized that this day would be remembered for something entirely different. He gently took the lead rope of his horse and walked slowly, giving her space to decide whether to follow. She walked beside him, not behind him, not in front, but right next to him. It wasn't the kind of company he had planned on, but it felt right, as if the land itself had chosen this meeting. The sound of their footsteps blended with the quiet songs of the birds overhead. The wind carried the faint scent of sage and sun-warmed stone. Sam didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know what the ranch hands would say when he returned. But deep down he felt a quiet certainty that this moment mattered. It wasn't just chance. It was something bigger, something that would shape the path ahead in ways he couldn't yet imagine. As they left the canyon behind, the light grew stronger, and the wide Arizona plain stretched out before them like a story waiting to be written. As the morning sun climbed higher, the vast plain stretched endlessly before Sam and the young woman. Every step felt significant, though neither spoke much. The silence was not awkward. It was a quiet understanding. Sam had always been comfortable alone in the wide open land, but today he realized that having someone beside him, even a stranger, added a sense of purpose and connection he hadn't felt before. Her name, he learned slowly, was Nalan. She spoke carefully, choosing her words, and Sam listened attentively. Though their languages were different, they found ways to communicate through gestures, simple words, and the occasional shared laugh. Nalan was clever and observant. She noticed things in the land that Sam had sometimes missed: small trails, hidden water sources, and the tracks of animals that could provide food. She asked questions, too, about the ranch, the horses, and the work Sam did every day. There was curiosity in her eyes, not fear, and it warmed Sam to see it. They reached a small clearing where the grass bent under the morning breeze. Sam paused to give the horse a rest and to let Nalan catch her breath. She leaned against a tree, watching the horizon with a thoughtful expression. Sam could see a quiet strength in her, the same strength he had noticed when he first saw her by the creek. He realized that Nalan was not just important because of her father, the chief, but because of the person she was. She had confidence, intelligence, and a natural way of understanding the world around her. Sam offered her a piece of dried meat from his pack. At first she hesitated, but then she accepted it politely, taking small bites. As she ate, Sam told her a bit about his life on the ranch, about the cattle and the fences, about the long hours and the quiet evenings. He spoke slowly and clearly, knowing she might not understand every word. She listened carefully, sometimes nodding, sometimes smiling. There was a gentle rhythm to their conversation, a quiet friendship forming without needing a shared language. Hours passed, and the sun moved steadily across the sky. They reached a small hill that overlooked the ranch in the distance. Sam pointed toward it, explaining that their home and work were just over the rise. Nalin looked down at the spread of fields, barns, and small buildings with wide-eyed interest. It was different from her village, yet she seemed to appreciate the order, the open space, and the way the animals roamed freely. As they approached the ranch, Sam's mind was busy with worry and anticipation. How would the other cowboys react? How would his family respond to seeing the chief's daughter at their doorstep? He hoped for understanding, but he knew the situation could be delicate. He took a deep breath, holding Nalin's hand gently to guide her. She seemed to sense his concern, squeezing his hand reassuringly. The gesture made Sam smile, realizing that courage could be quiet and gentle, just as much as it could be bold and loud. When they arrived, the other ranch hands were surprised, to say the least. Nalin's presence was unexpected, and a hush fell over the group. Sam stepped forward, speaking calmly and slowly, explaining that Nalin had wandered far from her home and that he had helped her along the way. He emphasized that she was safe and that their intentions were peaceful. Nalin stood beside him, composed and dignified. Her calmness seemed to ease the tension. Later that day, Sam made the decision to ride to the nearby Apache village. He wanted to ensure Nalin returned safely and to show respect to her father, the chief. Nalin nodded in agreement, and together they set out once more. The journey was not long, but it required careful attention to the trails and the natural markers of the land. Along the way, they shared stories, pointed out interesting plants and animals, and laughed at small mishaps, such as a loose saddle strap or a curious squirrel darting across their path. Each moment strengthened their bond, not as strangers but as companions traveling through a shared experience. When they reached the village, the chief was waiting. His expression was serious, but there was a glimmer of curiosity in his eyes. Sam dismounted and spoke respectfully, explaining the events of the day. He described how he had found Nalin by the creek and had helped her back to the ranch for rest and safety. The chief listened carefully, nodding slowly. Nalin stepped forward, speaking a few words in her language to her father. Sam did not understand everything, but he could see the chief's expression soften as he listened to his daughter. The meeting ended in a quiet and meaningful understanding. There was no anger, no accusation, only recognition of care and honesty. The chief extended a hand of thanks to Sam, and for the first time that day, Sam felt a wave of relief wash over him. He realized that respect, honesty, and courage were more powerful than fear or misunderstanding. Nalin smiled at both of them, the sun catching the turquoise beads in her hair, making them shimmer. It was a moment Sam would never forget. In the days that followed, Sam continued his work on the ranch, but things felt different. There was a sense of connection between his world and Nalin's. Occasionally, she would visit the ranch, sharing stories of her people, teaching Sam and the other ranch hands about plants, traditions, and ways of seeing the land that they had never noticed before. Sam found himself learning from her just as much as she had learned from him. Their friendship grew naturally, without pressure, without expectation, just mutual respect and genuine curiosity. The experience changed Sam in ways he did not fully understand at first. He realized that life was not just about surviving or completing daily tasks. It was about moments, about encounters, about understanding and connecting with others, even when they came from a world different from his own. Nalin had reminded him that the world was bigger than the ranch, bigger than the plains, and that every person had a story worth listening to. Months passed, and the story of Sam and Nalin became something of a quiet legend in the region. People spoke not of danger or conflict, but of friendship, trust, and respect. Sam never forgot the morning he went out hunting, expecting only to bring meat back to the ranch. He had found something far more important: human connection, understanding, and a reminder that kindness could bridge worlds. Nalin's visits continued. She brought with her knowledge of the land, stories of her people, and a calm wisdom that influenced everyone around her. Sam and the ranch hands listened, learned, and grew to appreciate perspectives they had never considered before. The bond between the ranch and the village became a quiet alliance, not forged through power or force, but through trust, care, and honesty. Sam often thought back to that first moment by the creek, to Nolan's calm eyes and steady gaze. He remembered how, for a brief moment, the world had felt completely still, as if waiting for something important to happen. He realized that the day had not been about what he had expected, hunting meat, but about discovering the strength and depth of human connection. It was a lesson he carried with him every day, and one that influenced every choice he made thereafter. Life on the ranch continued as it always had, but now with a new rhythm. There was work, there were chores, and there were long evenings by the fire. Yet there was also stories shared, laughter, and visits that connected the two worlds. Sam's days were fuller, richer, and deeper, and whenever he looked toward the horizon, he remembered that quiet morning in the canyon, and the young woman who had reminded him that life often gives us far more than we expect, when we approach it with an open heart. By the end of that year, Sam understood something very clearly. It was not only about the work, the land, or survival. It was about moments of courage, moments of trust, and moments of kindness. And those moments could create lasting connections that changed lives forever. Nolan had brought a new light into his world, and he, in turn, had shown her that even in a different world, honesty and care could be understood. Their story became a quiet example of friendship, respect, and the simple beauty of helping one another.